A mother's silent wait. In a quiet corner of Willow Creek, a small town nestled among rolling hills, lived Margaret, a 65-year-old woman with silver hair and a heart heavy with memories. Her modest cottage, surrounded by a garden she tended with care, was her sanctuary. Decades ago, her husband, Thomas, walked out, leaving her to raise their only child, Daniel, alone. Daniel was just 4 when his father vanished, too young to hold on to memories of him. Margaret never spoke of Thomas, and Daniel never asked. Life had been a steep climb for Margaret. With no savings and no support, she worked tirelessly, cleaning houses by day and waitressing at night, to keep a roof over their heads and food on the table. Every sacrifice was for Daniel, her bright-eyed boy. She dreamed of giving him a life full of possibilities, even if it meant burying her own. Margaret's world revolved around Daniel. She cheered at his soccer games, patched his torn jeans, and saved pennies to buy him books. She wanted him to have what she never could, a chance to chase his dreams. As he grew, her pride swelled. Daniel was kind, curious, and determined. She believed their bond was unbreakable, that he'd always be her anchor, no matter where life took him. But when Daniel turned 26, everything shifted. He met Clara, a woman with a sharp smile and a charm that seemed to light up rooms. One autumn evening, Daniel brought Clara to Margaret's cottage for supper. Clara complimented the cozy home and savored Margaret's homemade apple pie, but something in her gaze felt hollow to Margaret. It wasn't warmth or sincerity, it was calculation. Still, Margaret held her tongue. Daniel's eyes sparkled when he looked at Clara, and Margaret wanted nothing more than his happiness. Over time, Clara's influence seeped into Daniel's life like ink spreading through water. She nudged him toward a new wardrobe, expensive tastes, and a circle of polished friends who seemed to belong to a different world. "You deserve better than this small-town life," Clara would say, her words laced with ambition. Daniel began to drift. His weekly visits to Margaret's cottage dwindled to occasional phone calls. "Work's hectic, Mom," he'd say, or, "Clara and I have plans." The Sunday dinners, once filled with laughter and stories, faded into memory. Margaret's home grew silent, the ticking of the old clock on the mantel her only companion. The change in Daniel was subtle but undeniable. He spoke differently, carried himself with a new air of detachment. Margaret barely recognized the man who once ran to her with every triumph and trouble. Her heart ached, but she clung to hope, telling herself he was just busy, that he'd come back to her. One rainy afternoon, unable to bear the silence any longer, Margaret called Daniel. Her voice trembled as she said, "Daniel, you've changed. I'm worried about you." She tried to explain her unease about Clara, but the words came out wrong, tangled in her fear. Daniel's response was sharp. "Mom, you're suffocating me. Clara's right, you can't let me live my own life." His accusation cut deeper than any knife. Margaret had only ever wanted to protect him, but he saw her love as a cage. Tears streamed down her face as she hung up, the weight of his words crushing her. Months passed, each one stretching the distance between them. Margaret's hope began to fray. One chilly evening, driven by longing, she boarded a bus to Daniel's new apartment in the city, a sleek building far removed from their humble town. Her hands shook as she pressed the buzzer for apartment 12B. She whispered a prayer that Daniel would answer, that they could mend what was broken. Clara opened the door instead. Her expression was cold, her voice clipped. "Margaret, Daniel's here, but he doesn't want to see you." The words hit like a slap. Margaret stammered, "Please, I just need to talk to him." Clara's eyes narrowed. "He needs space from you. He says you're too controlling, always meddling in his life." Margaret's knees buckled. Controlling. She'd given everything for Daniel. her time, her dreams, her heart. But he was inside, and he didn't come to the door. Defeated, Margaret turned away, the city lights blurring through her tears. Time crawled on. Daniel didn't call or visit. Margaret's days were filled with routine, tending her garden, reading, staring at the phone that never rang. The townsfolk noticed her quiet sorrow, whispering guesses about what she'd done to lose her son. Margaret wanted to scream that it wasn't her fault, but she stayed silent, carrying her pain alone. One spring morning, Margaret opened the local newspaper and froze. An article mentioned Daniel and Clara. Clara had left him for another man, his closest friend. The betrayal was splashed across the page, raw and public. Margaret's heart broke for her son. She imagined him alone, hurting, and her instinct was to rush to him, to hold him as she had when he was small. But doubt held her back. What if he rejected her again? What if her love wasn't enough? As she sat lost in thought, a knock startled her. Visitors were rare these days. With a trembling hand, she opened the door. There stood Daniel, his face gaunt, his eyes swollen with tears. "Mom," he whispered, voice breaking. "I'm so sorry. I was wrong." Margaret's breath caught. She saw not the man who'd pushed her away, but her boy, broken and seeking home. Without a word, she pulled him into her arms, tears mingling with his. Daniel moved back into the cottage, filling its rooms with life again. They didn't talk about Clara or the lost years, not yet. Instead, they rebuilt their bond over small moments, shared meals, quiet evenings, laughter over old photos. The townsfolk stopped whispering, their pity replaced by smiles when they saw mother and son together. Some asked Margaret how she could forgive so easily after such pain. She'd only shake her head, a soft smile on her lips. They didn't understand a mother's love, fierce, enduring, capable of mending even the deepest wounds. The cottage was no longer silent. Daniel's voice echoed through its walls, and Margaret slept soundly, knowing her son was home. Though their relationship bore scars, it grew stronger, rooted in forgiveness and time. Margaret learned that love could weather betrayal, distance, and years of silence. It could bring back what was lost and make it whole again.